Hallelujah. God bless you. I do hope that you're having a beautiful day today. The Lord is good. Yes, He is. It's a bit sunny here. What I want to talk about is the book of Esther. I just want to go give it an overview because it is a beautiful book and it really shows how the Lord can turn things around. The things that were planned by the enemy can be turned around completely. That God is victorious. Now, the book of Esther starts with the king having a party, and he summons for the Queen Vashti. She doesn't want to come and she is banished. And the king looks for a new wife. Okay? And this girl is Esther. Esther is the cousin of Mordecai. Mordecai looks after Esther. And Esther is very beautiful. And the king chooses Esther to be his new queen. Now in Esther 2, it talks about how, she's absolutely treated, lavishly. This preparation is made for her to get ready for the king. It says, in verse 9, that 7 choice maidservants were provided for her from the king's palace. And he moved her and her maidservants to the best place in the house of the women. Okay, so Esther had 7 servants looking after her, maidservants, and was put in the best house. Now, Esther didn't reveal that she was a Jew to the king. This king was not Jewish, but Esther was. And it also talks about in Esther 2 of how for 6 months there was preparations with oil of myrrh and 6 months with perfumes and preparations for beautifying women. Okay, so there was a whole year of preparations in readiness for the king, making her ready, making her beautiful, making her smell really nice with these very fancy perfumes and oils. Okay? Now, her cousin Mordecai, who was the one who looked after her because she didn't have a mother or father to look after her, he would wait each day at the gate. Okay, verse 21, I'll read here. In those days, while Mordecai sat within the king's gate, 2 of the king's eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, doorkeepers, became furious and sought to lay hands on the king Ahasuerus. So the matter became known to Mordecai. So there he is, while he's at the gate, he learns about a plot to assassinate the king. And he makes this known, and the king, it's written down for the king what Mordecai did. And these people who hatched the plot to assassinate the king are executed. Now in the book of Esther, it talks about, in this version, it talks about how it's hanging is the execution. But I want to tell you, you could translate it to be impaled on a stake. And a lot of historians believe that people were actually impaled on a stake. Pretty gruesome. But anyway, I'll read it as hanging. So these 2 were placed on the gallows and were hanged. Now, Mordecai refuses to bow down to Haman. Haman has this big ego. He thinks he's wonderful. He's the second in command. He's the king's advisor. And so he is full of himself. He thinks himself really good. Mordecai refuses to bow to him. And he hates Mordecai. He thinks Mordecai is, he has a hatred for Mordecai. And he also hates the Jews. And so what he does is he comes up with a plan. And the plan is that on a certain date, right, that is decided by a dice called a pur, that the people would rise up and kill the Jews, right? He is the first recorded anti-Semitic that absolutely despises the Jews and wants them all killed. So he gets the king to pass this law, right? That on a certain day in a certain month, the Jews are going to be executed. So time is running out for the Jewish people. Things are looking bad. Okay? The king seals it with his ring and it's made law. The Jewish people are going to be killed. They're going to be wiped out. Now, in Esther 4, Mordecai hears about this and he tears his clothes, puts on sackcloth and ashes and cries out to the Lord. It is a terrible time. What's going on? He speaks to Esther, who is the queen now, and he tells her that she must speak to this king and try and reverse this decree that's going to kill the Jewish people. Time is running out. And the thing is that there is this law that if you approach the king, right, without him giving permission, and he does not raise the royal scepter, you are put to death according to the law. So if the king doesn't raise the scepter, this queen will be put to death. Right? The queen and king don't have equal footing here, let me tell you, Right? There's not equality between the king and the queen. Right? If the king doesn't like you, he'll put you to death. Right? But time is running out. And so she consecrates, she tells everyone that they need to fast. Okay? In verse 16, go, gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan and fast for me. Neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast likewise. And so I will go to the king, which is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Okay? So she's going to speak to the king. And if she perishes, she perishes. But they had this fast for 3 days, 3 nights with no food, no water. And we call that an Esther fast. Okay? No water, no food for 3 days. Now, Haman also decides he wants Mordecai to be executed, to be killed. Right? And his wife says to him in Esther 5, let's have a gallows made 50 cubits high, and in the morning let's suggest to the king that Mordecai be hanged on it. Right? So he's got this plan in his head that Mordecai is going to be killed. He's going to be executed. Now Esther does speak to the king, and the king raises the royal scepter, and Esther is not put to death. And she suggests to the king that they have a banquet, right? A royal banquet where Haman is there. Now Haman has this plan that he's going to have Mordecai hanged. Now in Esther 6, we see that everything starts to turn around. Everything. All these plans, the plans to kill the Jews, the plans to kill Mordecai, everything starts to turn around. And it's actually quite funny. So in Esther 6, the king, couldn't sleep. And he comes and reads the book of Chronicles, and there it's written about Mordecai, how he stopped an assassination plot, and he was not rewarded. So the king thinks to himself, I need to reward this person. Whereas Haman has got plans for Mordecai to be, hanged. Right? And so the king, the next day, Haman comes along and is speaking to the king, and the king says, what shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honor? What shall be done for the man that the king delights to honor? And Haman, who is full of himself, thinks, this is for me, right? The king wants to honor his right-hand man, which is me. Okay, right? Now, Haman has all these suggestions, having a big parade, putting royal clothes on him, on this person, because he thinks it's all about him, right? You know, let's have a parade. Let's put him on a horse. Let's parade him out in front of everybody. He thinks this is about him. And then the king says, yes, let's do this. Let's do this for Mordecai, who saved my life. So instead of the parade being for Haman, this parade is for Mordecai. God turned it around. Then in Esther 7, Queen Esther, at this banquet that she'd organized with the king, reveals how she is a Jew and how there is a plot to kill the Jewish people. And this plot came about from Haman. So what happens here is it is all reversed around. Instead of Mordecai being hung on these gallows, right? It says in Esther 7 verse 10, so they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. So once again, God turned it around, right? He turned it around how the parade was for, was going to be for Haman, and instead it was for Mordecai. He turned it around here, how this hanging was going to be for Mordecai, but now Haman was hanged. Now he turns it around even further because there's this scheme that gets changed, right? It doesn't get reversed. There's still that decree. There's still the decree that the Jewish people are all going to be killed on a certain day. But what happens is the king issues a new decree that says the Jewish people should fight back, and they are going to be supported. Anybody that attacks the Jews will be executed. The king now supports the Jewish people and encourages them to rise up against anybody that attacks them. And sure enough, the Jewish people prevail. Okay? So, once again, things are turned around. Instead of the Jewish people being wiped out and killed, it's their attackers, the ones that hate them. Okay? Now, that's the essence of the story. I know that, Haman's sons all get executed. They all get hanged. But everything turns around. And the point I want to make with this book of Esther is how the Lord is the one in charge. The Lord isn't actually mentioned in the book of Esther, right? He's not mentioned at all. But he's working behind the scenes. He's looking after those who love him. He's opening doors that need to be opened. He's blessing the plans. He's blessing things for you. Okay? He's turning things around. Plots that the enemy has against you, he will turn around and uses things that have meant against you for good. So we can trust in him completely. But I do love the story of Esther, how everything is completely turned around. We serve a good God who is well able to do the impossible. We do. Hallelujah. And well able to change things around for good. I'm here looking out at a beautiful oval on this very warm day. God bless you heaps. Hallelujah.